And we are good to go. I'll make sure water's all topped off and all that. Oh yeah, sit-stand desks I would highly recommend. The things I will make sure, like if you go to look to buy a sit-stand desk, some things that you do want to make absolutely sure about your sit-stand desk. One is check how high you need the desk to be for your height for sitting and standing. Because if you get a sit-stand desk that's too short, it doesn't do you any good. Because now you have bad ergonomics. Or just the same, too tall. And all the desks will have a range that's like, I can be from height X to height Y, whatever it is. And then the other thing to make sure is that you probably want one that's got either programmed in heights or whatever, or otherwise you can like set the heights. That way you can switch between your heights very easily. Oh, happy birthday, Insane Spork. Yep. Good to see you as well, Gloopies. And yep, Ellen is still kicking. We're at 44,500 kills, roughly. We also survived about 10 months. Did that say thick fog today as well? Or is that tomorrow? I didn't see the broadcast. It's fine. We're going. I don't like when you get multiple days of bad weather in a row and it's just like, oh, I guess we just hunker down for a while. I'm also tired of these zombies wandering back in after we've cleared this area many times in the past and went so long without friends. Alright, so I need to keep my eye out for leather shirts and jackets. Well, leather clothes in general. Not gonna worry about it. We'll just wait till we see leather and just... I need to keep an eye out to rip some leather up. No, it didn't get repopulated. Once we cleared Riverside, I took all the stuff that was like the Riverside general area and kind of just lumped them in with Riverside. That way it didn't get too cluttered. But no, it's still, as best, like, last we checked, it's still cleared. Same with the factory warehouse area and all of that. Just because by the time this list is over, it's going to have, you know, Riverside, Rosewood, March Ridge, Muldrow, West Point. So here's a dirty trick you can do. So this leather jacket, I can't rip it because it's too far gone. But if I take 2 seconds, find myself a little bit of thread. So we got some thread, excellent. And now I go to leather jacket and go inspect here. Let's just patch one hole on here. So I patched one hole on it. And now it's not a destroyed leather jacket. I can now rip it. And now I've got some leather scraps. That's probably enough leather scraps to do all of this. Is that 11 leather strips? How many spots do you have on your jacket? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. So that one jacket was enough to give us all the leather strips you need. So yeah, that is the thing. That's all it's checking to see is what the condition is, and you can repair it to make it better. So it is what it is. Oh, hang on, my mic's too far. Okay. Hey, next level tabletop, how's it going? Nope, we had a zombie that jumped the fence behind us. I miss when we were actually bothering to keep the roads clear. Like, this spot's not bad. Ready for 45,000? Yep. Like, this spot's not bad. But you can see how dense these trees are getting along the sides of the road now that 10 months have gone by and they keep growing. So it's just unfortunately been too dangerous for me to kill the zombies near the trees. So, where I was keeping them along, like, the shoulders and all that, the shoulders have gotten too dangerous for it. Mosh and Kimmy cashing in 10 push-ups, so I'm going to knock those out real fast, and I will be right back. Emote idea, a tree with a red circle slashed through it. Yeah, no trees. I could see doing something like that, because there's a bunch of games that applies, like Project Zomboid, trees are the devil. Factorio, trees are a general annoyance that get in the way forever and always. At least in Factorio, you get to have sweet vengeance on the trees by walking up with a whole bunch of grenades and smashing them all. We got a hydrate. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, sorry, I missed it. It's all good. We're sitting on like 40 or 50 of them at this point. I got, I think, 10 or 12 on us. There's probably another 10 or so in the back of the truck. I think you got like 20 or 30 back at base. Now, that said, like, if I see them, I will try and grab them because, you know, we do go through them. But as long as I'm just not ignoring them forever. But I absolutely miss a bunch of them. Can't get... So, even in the games where trees aren't bad, we can still cut them all down for resources. Yes. Knives for days? Knives for days. Says Mosh and Kimmy. What you got in you? Is that a pipe? Looks like it's probably a pipe. I like lead pipes. They slap. They're no katana, but they do wreck house. I hate where sometimes they get up, it's really hard to get your character to actually aim where you want it. Grab those vitamins. I'm not going to go skulking in the trees for them. That's dangerous. It's fine. They'll come to us eventually. Is there much of a difference between metal bar, metal pipe, and lead pipe? I know there are some stat difference. I don't know off the top of my head. My gut check says that the lead pipe is the best of them, but that could be just my belief that the lead pipe is best of them, making me, you know, making me think that I'm seeing better damage on them, if that makes sense. Like confirmation bias kind of thing. But I'm sure someone could like pull up the wiki and be like, well, actually, metal pipe does a much more reliable and consistent damage per second, whereas the metal bar gets higher crits, or whatever the reality of it is. But they feel within a rock throw of each other. Not enough that it'd be like, oh, like I'm not going to take one and not, you know, take the other. If it drops, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to beat a zombie with it. Happy with an anecdotal experience? Do you feel there's any difference in durability? Not, if there is, not significantly so. I feel like the metal pipe I tend to see break more often than the others. But that's just, like, me trying to think how do, like, they feel, not really being able to actually, like, measure it all. That is one of the issues with, like, RNG based things, is it could be just I have good bad luck with stuff, or even then that when I'm having bad luck I notice, but I don't notice, you know, when I'm having good luck. But I would generally say between the lead pipe, the metal bar, and the metal pipe, any or all of them are fine. Like, they're all decent weapons. I'm generally not one who's like, well, which one's the best? I'm like, I mean, I'm going to break the one and I'm going to use the other, so sure. Okay, so the metal bar doing is slightly more damage than the pipe. And then the metal bar and pipe are supposed to have the same durability. Okay. I mean, that makes sense, especially when you're talking about how little of a difference in damage you're talking about. That's probably not an amount you'd appreciably notice. So it's supposed to be hammer, lead pipe, metal bar, metal pipe? Okay. So where the lead... So, okay, so it wasn't just confirmation bias in my head about the lead pipe being a little bit better. And then the other two, it's like I hadn't really appreciably noticed the difference between the two. Awesome. Good to hear. Yeah, Karagom does a good job. I believe Karagom has done a lot of work on updating the wiki's weapons. That said, if I get any of those things, I'm just gonna hit a zombie with it. Because honestly, I rarely worry about what weapon's better than another weapon, with like the exception of, you know, the katana and the machete and such, by comparison to other things. Because the way I look at it is either one, I'm gonna have to use all the weapons anyways, it doesn't matter, or B, once I get to the point of like level 8, 9, and 10 of a weapon type, if it's anything but a terrible weapon in that category, it's probably gonna wreck house. This one zombie every, like, 20 feet, as opposed to, like, running into a horde, you know, every so often. Pretty annoying, actually. I'd much rather just bump into a big group and deal with it. I'm adjusting this mic again. There we go. Yeah, and I get that, like, especially early game, people go, like, what's your favorite weapon? And I'll jokingly be like, anything I can hit a zombie with, because early game in these kinds of runs, you'll see me, like, grabbing pencils and pens and spoons and anything, because literally I will run out of weapons constantly until my maintenance gets up. And it has kind of become one thing where, you know, people ask me, it's like, oh, you know, this weapon is just terrible, it's unusable, and this other weapon's so much better. And it's like, well, no, there's, you know, there's individual weapons that are pretty worthless, like, you know, a pencil. But as far as, like, weapon categories, there's not a single weapon category in the game would be like, this is, like, a terrible, like, you shouldn't use this. Like, no, they're all good. Xander says, the hammer is not better than the bar and pipe, though. It is lower min damage, longer swing, and lower crit chance, but slightly higher durability. Gotcha. But like I've had people be like, you use short blades, that's like suicidal. Like you can't possibly do that and survive, you know. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, I'm at about 44,500 zombies with my favorite weapon being a short blade, so I mean, I'm either like a statistical anomaly or maybe they're not as bad as people think they are. Maybe, in fact, they're actually pretty good. Alright, Lulu, you sleep well. And while I don't think they're talking about a proper blacksmithing skill, Mashin Kimmy, they did have a announcement that their next major update, it's not the little one that's the unstable branch right now, but like the next major update, that they're going to make it so you're going to be able to craft a lot more stuff than we currently have and expand on like almost like tech trees level of crafting trees and all that. So we don't even know what the implications about how much they're going to make, because they're like talking about when that comes out, making it so generators will only be able to be repaired so many times once they have a alternative to generators, or like being able to rebuild them as part of that crafting thing. It's like, okay, are you telling me that I'm going to be able to build a generator or some other power source that maybe is like less efficient, but I can, you know, build out of materials I find in the world? Because go on. But they talked about the idea being that they wanted to make it so you could reasonably, like, not just survive, but actually make like a proper base with nothing more than like you walk from the first building you spawn without taking a single item, go out in the wilderness, and just you're good to go. Next level tabletop says blacksmithing is kind of already in the code, but not in the game. You can find a blacksmith occupation image and images for the blacksmithing books in the code. Gotcha. Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me, because they've been talking about that, one, that they were going to do a major overhaul of crafting to make it so not only would you have a much farther in-depth crafting in general, but on top of that there'd be crafting that you can kind of mix stuff together, where like I could do like leather working to put together some like leather armor, and then metal working to, you know, in combination with leather working to add like metal plating to the leather, you know, and then I could then use tailoring to add like padding to the leather armor, that kind of thing. And so that was all very interesting. But they even talked about having it so you would have occupations that would have like an intro and end time kind of thing. Because they made the comment, it's like, you know, it doesn't make sense. Because they have a challenge map, they have a challenge map where you start like 10 years after the zombie apocalypse has broken, or 5, like some many years in the future after the zombie apocalypse. And one of the comments they made is like, you know, it doesn't make sense that 10 years after the zombie apocalypse has broken out, that someone would consider themselves a burger flipper when there are no functional restaurants, you know, in which to flip burgers in the past 10 years. So they're coming up with the idea that if you start like 10 months later or whatever it is, or not, sorry, 10 years later, whatever the name of it is, that just, if you start that late, burger flipper and that kind of stuff just wouldn't be an option, but instead you'd have other options that wouldn't be available. Like they talked about, veteran wouldn't be an option 10 years later. Instead it would be like combat scavenger or something like that. Or armed scavenger, whatever. So it sounds pretty interesting. They even talked about having it so gas would go bad after a certain number of years too. Which to me would imply that we're going to get, you know, and they're really expanding on that, and they want you to keep being able to do power in that. They either have like biodiesel or something else you'd be able to make as an alternative. That like maybe it's not as efficient, maybe it's noisier, there'd be some negative. Kit says, I'm so happy with our investment in air fryer. Just figured I'd mention that. Absolutely. I haven't used our air fryer in a while because I haven't fried anything in a while. But yeah, like for making chicken wings and that kind of stuff, the air fryer's been amazing. You just chuck it in, and it's like you get the benefit of like what you would from, you know, an oil fryer or whatever, except like you don't have the oil, your wings are less greasy afterwards. Like, it's honestly, they're just, to me, they're just better wings. And, like, I am a huge fan of buffalo wings and all that, but still. Uh-huh. Well, that's, there's actually a place, I'm not going to say its name because don't do that because don't dox yourself, but there is a place that it's a chain that one of their locations they put near us. Their whole gimmick is that they don't deep fry anything, that they use stuff like, you know, they bake and all that kind of stuff. And, like, honestly, their chicken wings are some of the best. Like, I mean, it's still got the sauce and everything like your typical buffalo wing. It's just instead of deep frying everything, they bake them. And in my opinion, like, they got a better crunch to them and everything that way. Or just the same, there's another place that's like a sports bar place, and like, I genuinely like their grilled wings over their fried ones more, and that's usually not the case. I have no idea about Chick-fil-A. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I have no idea. I think more places are doing that kind of thing then, because part of it used to be the only way you could cook stuff fast enough like that was using deep fryer with the frying oil, but the technology for heating stuff has improved over the years with cooking prep, that you can now like superheat the air to allow for just air frying much more readily, whereas before the warm-up time was just way more than it was, you know, before. Gersley Bear says, I had an idea for older gas stations, older than a year. What if it would have negative effects on the engine? I could see that. Like, you could use gas that's not truly gone, but not great. So you'd have like a way higher chance of stalling out, and there is a chance that you could effectively not flood the engine, but you could get bad gas in the engine, where as a mechanic you'd have to go in and clear the fuel lines or whatever. So it'd be one of those things that would be a time set, you know, like a time laborious thing. And when I say time, in the game would be you'd right click, choose, you know, like drain fuel lines or whatever, and it's something that take an in-game 30 minutes, in-game hour kind of thing, during which, you know, the car's useless to you because it's all choked up on bad gas. It's just the risk for that would get higher and higher as the gas sat longer and longer, to the point it's just not worth taking the risk if you don't have to. Gloopy says, off topic, but I work at an Italian restaurant, and today we got a shipment of prosciutto. Got to eat some fresh, and it is being, as it was being sliced, religious experience. Oh yeah, prosciutto's delicious. That's, when I was visiting up in Ohio, like, this would be like right after we hit affiliate, I had a vacation planned from like work and everything to go visit up there because we have family and all that. And we did that. And it was like when it's like fairly social distancing, everyone, you know, tested first. I road tripped as opposed to flew, which was fun. I don't think I want to do it again because, like, driving for like 16 hours is no thank you. But yeah, so we did all that, but just going to like the Amish country where they have like legit just made cheeses and all that of like every imaginable variety, and just, oh my goodness. Imagine Kimmy's like, shut up and take my money. Uh-huh. Exactly. I like your proposal for teaching the Avatar's characters to make biofuel. Right. So like it'd be a thing you'd need a magazine for. Like I'm down for that. Like I don't know if they'd have a skill like chemistry or what. Like call it what they want. You know what, chemistry would be good, because maybe you could make, with the chemistry, you might be able to make certain of the medicines, so you have, like, first aid and chemistry together, and it would allow you to make the different drugs in the game. Whereas with just first aid, you'd do more, like, herbal medicine. But, you'd then be able to, like, find the magazine that's like, here's how you turn potatoes into fuel, or I don't know anything about biofuel other than it's, you take vegetables and you make, I think it's considered a form of ethanol, but you make a, flammable or a fuel-worthy grade ethanol. That was one of my earlier jobs. So I was like a teenager, and my job was literally titled general labor. So you can get an idea of like what quality, what tier of job we were working. But the idea was at the location I was at, which was a tourist place. And I won't say more about specifically what they dealt in, because it'd be one of those things that once I say anything about it, you just know which place I'm referring to, and don't dox yourself. But they would have all these different jobs, and you'd bid for what spot you wanted to be, and whoever had the highest seniority would get whatever position they bid for, and anyone who didn't get the position they bid got stuck with the leftovers, so to speak. So it's kind of this... It was really insidious, in my opinion, because it got you to try and, like, bid for something not at the top of the ladder, but kind of, like, where you felt you could hit the comfortable place where I'm probably going to be the highest one who bid for this, but not really. And I definitely remember a couple times getting to work. There was a gourmet kitchen on the place, and you get stuck doing the dishwashing, which is really a completely unpleasant job, because like we had these things that they make these, like, it was like a cream kind of ice cream, but it was like this cream kind of ice cream that they'd shape to look like stuff, or like kind of an artsy thing. And half the people wouldn't eat it because the type of ice cream was more about the aesthetics than the taste. So it's like when you use fondant with cake, like it's really good for presentation, but kind of really crap when it came to eating. It's just not the best. And so half the time they wouldn't eat it, and the plates would get smashed together with that cream there and then left, for, half hour or whatever before it got to the kitchen or whatever to be washed. I definitely remember dealing with that and just absolutely hating everything about it. Because, like, I legitimately broke those plates a couple times trying to pry them apart. That crap just held so tightly. Which you didn't get in trouble for. Like, if a plate broke, as long as it was in some, like, obnoxious number of plates, they didn't care. No, I never burned my hands in anything that's hot. Luckily, because this was a gourmet kitchen as opposed to, like, typically, like, a fast, like, quick service kind of place or whatever. I didn't have to worry about too much because I'd spend all this time prepping food, making it nice, presentation, doing all that. You'd have, like, multiple courses. Like, it's this whole nonsense. But, because of that, usually you didn't have to worry too much about that. And honestly, a lot of the cooks were pretty good about, because they understood that a lot of the people who got stuck doing the dishwashing didn't want anything to do with it. They just got bid on got outbid on another role and got stuck with it. So a lot of the cooks were actually really good that, they'd have the phase where they cook everything, and then it's kind of them waiting to react, respond, whatever, as things come up. So they had a bit of downtime, but they didn't really have a whole lot else to do. So a lot of the times that it came to pots and pans and that type of stuff, they would be pretty good about cleaning their own stuff. Plus, we were a bunch of teenagers who weren't particularly invested in keeping the cookware in great shape because, it was a borderline minimum wage job. None of us were happy to be there. We're doing it because it was what was available. So even though I definitely took precautions to try and do my job right and all that, there were some who were like just throwing the stuff in there, banging around, scratching it up, and then ruining the cookware over time. So a lot of the chefs and all that would just do their own dishware, both because it's the nice thing to do and also to kind of protect their cookware. Oh yeah. And you look at you look at food services jobs, like, those are absurdly stressful jobs. Like, especially the people who have to interact with guests on the regular basis, like waiters and waitresses. Like, they're, it's not that people end up in those jobs because they have drug problems, it's people end up with drug problems from working those jobs. Because it's the only way they can kind of cope with that crap for that long. Exceptions apply, of course. But yeah, they're rough. Yeah, line chef for 5 months, this is so true. Well, it's like the worst thing is you'll do all the stuff, like the person's like, this is what I want, X, Y, Z. You'll have the ridiculously picky person who has very, like, it's not like, hey, I have an allergy for whatever. You know, please don't give me that. That's fine. Like, that happens. But yeah, people's like, well, I want this, but I want it on just half of it, and I want it on this side, but not that side. And I would also like this half to be one temperature, and that. And it's like, what do you think we do here? Like, I have no problem with going through here and like trying to figure stuff out with you, but like, how are you expecting me like cook this hamburger where half of it's rare and half of it's well done? Like, what do you think our ovens look like? How do you think this works? Do you want me to make like 2 burgers for the price of one and just cut them in half and then like put them together somehow? I also find it interesting because my general approach to ordering food is, for the most part, I order stuff and it's like, how do you want it? How it comes. Like, you know, when they ask, like, do you want it medium rare, rare? It's like, okay, sure. Like, I'll take the time to be like, yeah, this is the way I want. But they'll list off, like, their 10 ingredients and they're like, okay, well, how would you like that? Well, I would like everything that comes on it just the way it is. About the only exception is mayonnaise, because I'm not a big fan of mayonnaise. I'll be like, yeah, no thanks, no mayonnaise. But usually then I just won't order the stuff that comes with mayonnaise to begin with. I won't make a whole thing out of it. The exception being fast food, because if I don't... Like, you go to fast food places, you usually get like 2 or 3 options, and you either, you know, get picky about some of the stuff, or you just don't get to have food. Like, I am happy that these days a lot of places will stop putting mayonnaise on by default, and they'll give you like the separate mayonnaise thing. Because I remember it's a whole thing that I was actually keeping tabs of when I would, because I've never been a big fast food burger place, but, you know, I would go to Wendy's from time to time, because that was a place kind of like my buddies liked, and Wendy's was like, had a really good chicken sandwich at the time. We're talking early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, and I got to the point I was actually keeping track of, like, I would ask for no mayo every single time, and how often they got it right versus wrong. And I can tell you, I almost never got no mayonnaise. And I get it, they pre-prep them, they do all that sort of stuff, but I was just so tired of always ending up with mayonnaise. You know, I didn't want to be the people who, like, one of the people asked to sit there and be like, no, 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 I have this serious allergy, when I don't, because you shouldn't do that if you don't actually have an allergy. But it's almost like, is this what it takes? That you have to be scared that I'm going to sue you because you know, put me in the hospital or something? Yeah, and I won't go back to food services either. So, and this is going to be not specifically about that, because I actually don't know about that kitchen specifically. I haven't kept up. I generally look at automation kind of with 2 different issues conflated into one thing. You have the human side of automation. That is, should people have to do these jobs that no one really wants to do? You know, no one, not, I mean, I shouldn't say no one. Most people don't want to sit over a deep fryer for long hours flipping stuff. It's not fun. You burn your hands. You get hurt. There's that side. So, and we can take the extreme thing of no one wants to be the one who walks into an active nuclear reactor to deal with stuff because it's super dangerous and super sketch. No one wants to have to go into, you know, not yet secured coal mines and dig out stuff. Like, those are places that robots should go, as the menial stuff, the dangerous stuff. That should be automated for the human purpose. That way people are freed up to do stuff they want to do, or has actually got meaning to their lives, kind of thing. Not just because we arbitrarily say, but the economy. Now that takes us to the second side of the automation issue, which boils down to the current structure of economics requires you to work to survive. Just that's the way it is. And the problem we are actually running into is, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. And like people who, well, I guess I should say there's a difference between doesn't mind versus actively wants to. But still, kind of the bigger issue you run into is like, so there's that side of the automation of, should a human be dedicating their time to this? Like, is this enriching that person's life? Is this contribution something that is meaningful to the individual who is doing it? Now, there's the economic side of it, which is the problem. Like, the human side of it's not a problem. That's a no-brainer. If people don't want to do something and we can put a robot in that spot, let's do it. But then you get to the economic problem, which is the issue here, which is, you know, sure, we can put a robot, you can, like, we fully automate a restaurant, for example, and it will be, in many ways, just as good, sometimes better, with a few exceptions. Like, when things do not go well with the automation, that's the point that having a human being involved in the process will help a great deal, as is true with almost all automation. You do have to have someone who, you know, keeps an eye on things. Just like where we have, you know, grocery stores that have like one cashier running like 6 lanes because they're automated. Now, when you're getting to the economic side of it, you effectively remove 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 jobs, however many jobs, and you turn them into just 1 or 2 jobs. And when you say they pay better, they do, typically, but the amount they pay better is nowhere near the amount that goes away. But yeah. Now, the economics behind it is, again, the whole, if people don't work in our society, they don't have medical insurance, they don't have health, you know, dental insurance, they don't have optical insurance, they don't have mental health insurance, they can't afford to live, all that kind of stuff, and that's the problem. And one of the issues we're running into, and it's not, there's like no industry, like there's the industries you typically hear about, like grocery stores, retail, food services, hospitality, that are getting automated away. Driving is getting that way. It does hit every industry. Like, the joke has always been, oh, you know, if you don't want to get put out of a job by robots, you know, be the ones who program the robots. Well, I hate to break it to you, but even in my time in software dev, we are getting more and more and more efficient about writing software where we have lots of, not full-on automation, but where, you know, I used to have to write out all the code for a class and all its individual methods and all of its individual structures. And nowadays I can sit there and go, okay, well, I am making a controller class that does this. Hit a button and it pre-generates stuff and I fill in all the missing pieces. That's automation. And it's not 100% automation, but it has made it so I can get that work done 60%, 70% faster. Which means, if we were to extrapolate that over the amount of work I need to get done, I need 40%, you know, like 50, 60% less software developers to do that automation. So it still ultimately boils down to the same result, is a bunch of jobs go away. And we are hitting the point where not everyone needs to work, so far as to support our way of life. It's just not necessary. And we have to come to that grim reality of, okay, well, what do we do? Either 1, we take care of them, or 2, we don't. And no one wants to discuss what we do when we get to that point. And we're, in a lot of ways, we're already at that point, but we're just getting closer and closer to having more and more people effectively, from increased productivity, removed from the workforce. And it's like, okay, well, by that, people practically need to die, because that's the alternative. We take care of them or they die. But yeah, and that's going well. We just had a question about automation, so it's like that. Yeah, so that's my whole thing. Is just when people are like, what do you think about the robots taking people jobs? I'm like, well, it depends. If we're talking about the human side of it, I think it's a good thing that people don't have to do menial work that they don't want to do. On the economic side of it, that's a problem. And the issue is, from my standpoint, I would say, okay, we should do what humanly is the correct thing to do, and then figure out how to make the economics work around that. And that's easier said than done by a long shot, because it does require us to accept, hey, you know what? There's gonna be a bunch of people that, quote unquote, aren't going to contribute to the workforce, and that's fine in my view. Just because I had to work a bunch of time doesn't mean my children have to work a bunch of time. I'm okay with that. Yeah, Burn and Sun, that is absolutely one way to approach it. It's like, okay, well, you know, one of the promises when automation first started showing up, and like we were starting to see real productivity gains, it said, hey, you know what? This is all good, because all these improvements in productivity means people are going to have to work as many hours. You know, like every like we'll have more time, and that never actually became a thing. Ogo says the traditional justification for automation is that the economic constantly grows, and the work needed to do, you know, reduced X amount would reduce Y%, and then the price of labor falls until the investment soaks up the empty labor pool. Of course, price of labor is synonymous with wages. Yeah, no, and I get that, Ogo. So, like, that's the traditional economics behind it. And that's one of the things, it's like traditional economics, like, okay, we're running into a problem, though, where the traditional economics effectively break down. Because we hit a point where it's like, okay, people just aren't needed to work certain jobs at the same capacity. Hey, Rockbeard. How's it going? Now, I'm agreeing with you on that's what the way things work are. It's just the whole thing of as productivity continues to improve, and then we hit a point that just we don't need people doing stuff, so there's less need for workforce kind of thing. We do hit a point where we go, okay, we need to figure out, okay, so we got our potatoes. And I'm pulling these up at, you know, wherever I can get them, because I've had really bad luck with accidentally leaving potatoes too long that they rot. And I'd rather just take it safe and just make sure I get the potatoes. But yeah, the whole point of that was, I don't personally see automation in itself as the problem. The problem is how our economics work around automation. That is the problem. And to me, the solution is to adapt the way the economics work to be compatible with people having to work less. So it's difficult. And the big reason it's difficult is there are a lot of people, it's like, but I had to work all this time and they just get a... Yeah, it's fine. The whole point is society's supposed to improve over time, not remain the same. Hey, Dying Brainstem, how's it going? That door was not the one I wanted to open. That's fine. Yo-Yo says, hey, Roll, I just stopped my gaming session at 40,057 kills today. How's your running going? We're at 44,551 zombie kills. Let's plant these seeds. Let's grab out our little hand radio and see if we got rain coming soon, because I would rather not have to water all these things if I can help it. I mean, I might not even water them just because I have enough that if they don't make it, I don't really care. Yo-Yo says you have 5 katanas. I am up to 21 katanas so far. And again, we're just on regular apocalypse loot. I mean, I do have the lucky trait. That could be a factor. I have been told that does does help. Then since we just got some actual wins on the basketball court, time to relax to some PZ. Excellent. And the beauty of having so many of these rain barrels, I feel no guilt in washing stuff in clean water and all that. So that's good. Elgo said, did I tell you I started a weird Product Zomboid run? The first thing I saw when I left my spawn was a rascal scooter that I'm driving from now on. Excellent. I know you said you wanted to do a really weird run, and you were looking for mods to make the weirdest run you can make happen. And it does sound like you found success there. Alright, so I'm going to quickly put these leather patches on our jacket. I'm also noticing the time. I should have already had dinner going, but it's easy to lose track of time. I'm willing to bet my wife has already started it. So here in just a minute, I'm going to step away from the computer for like... Yes, I can wash clothes in the lake. Stuff like the cloth strips and the leather strips, for whatever reason, you can only wash with fresh water. Just the same as like... It's probably to have to do with bandages, honestly. You can like bandage your arm that you have to use the clean water. But it is the way it is. Okay, so where... There we go. So now, if we look at our protection of all our clothes, it's getting pretty solid. Alright, so bear with me for just a minute, because I'm going to... turn this off. And go to sleep.